If you want a very saucy stir fry, instead of adding sauce to your stir fry, try adding a stir fry to your sauce. This technique will give you a more consistent end result with less clumps and less margin of error than if you were to use that food blogger mainstay of a quote-unquote stir fry sauce. Because, I have nothing against the Western weeknight vaguely Asian stir fry. It's its own thing, authentic to the kitchens that it's made in. But it could, I think, be improved with a little Chinese technique. Because it seems like outside of China, many people's favorite stir fries are the very saucy kind. Beef and broccoli, mogu gai pin, General Tso's. And many of those Western weeknight stir fries tend to aim for that kind of consistency. So to that end, they'll mix together a stir-fry sauce, laden with all their seasoning, stock, generous helping of cornstarch, then dump that in and let it cook. Now this move does kind of exist in China too. It's called a wanqian or bowl sauce, very common in home kitchens, but it's usually employed in a drier, more home-style kind of stir-fry. For that kind of very thick, very saucy, restaurant-style dish, whether in China or in a takeout kitchen, generally the move is to cook the sauce by itself, get it to the right consistency, then add in your pre-cooked, already stir-fried ingredients. So let's show you the technique in action. 2 flavors today to show you how you can play with this: a Western supermarket-friendly saucy Cantonese stir-fry, and second, a spicy Sichuan-inspired variant. And to do so, we'll keep things internationally approachable with the internationally classic stir-fry mix of chicken breast, king oyster mushroom, red pepper, and spinach. Now, I want to get right into this, so we'll show you how we prepped all this stuff in with the second recipe. For now, just know that this was all pre-stir-fried, and the spinach we decided to use as a bed to sop up all that sauce. With that said, though, we do need to talk about starch before anything. Because Chinese stir-fries, they get their thickness from starch. And by far the most common starch available worldwide is, of course, cornstarch. But there are many, many other choices out there. Now, you can definitely use cornstarch. I've totally done it before. But especially for beginners, it's probably the worst choice of them all. And that's because cornstarch, it takes time. When you add cornstarch to a dish, it'll generally take about 30 seconds for it to thicken right up. But all of the rest of these guys are practically instant. So then, as you add, you can then eyeball whether you're adding too much or too little and adjust accordingly. Our recommendation is potato starch if you can get it, mixing in a tablespoon half together with 3 tablespoons of water to get a slurry. You probably won't quite need all of this, but it's always nice to have a little extra handy just in case. So then, alright. To fry up our Cantonese sauce, we'll first toss 2 tablespoons of lard into a hot wok, and over a medium-low flame fry up 2 cloves garlic, 1 centimeter of ginger, and the white bits of 3 scallions, all finely minced. After those are fragrant, about 45 seconds, up the flame to high and drizzle in a tablespoon of Shaoxing wine. Quick mix, then toss in 1 cup of stock. Then, season that stock with a teaspoon of chicken bouillon powder, a half teaspoon sugar, and a 1/4 teaspoon salt and MSG, and bring that up to a rapid boil. Once boiling, swap the flame back down to medium-low, and begin to drizzle in the slurry in a thin stream, stirring constantly. You should be looking at something slightly before spoon coating consistency, and again, you might not quite need all of the slurry. Then, add in your pre-stir-fried ingredients and bring the flame back up to high. Mix and let those ingredients all come back up to temperature, about 30 to 40 seconds, and at this point, evaluate your consistency once again. If it's a little too thick for you, add a touch of water, or too thin, a bit more slurry. Then, season to taste, we added a good sprinkle of white pepper, and toss in the green parts of the scallion that we used before. Quick mix, heat off, drizzle in with a teaspoon of toasted sesame oil or lard, and layer that stir-fry onto the greens. In Guangdong, most classic for a stir-fry like this would be to layer onto fried noodles, maybe have a stir-fried veg on the side. But I do know how much people out there love their Western weeknight stir-fries next to a bowl of white rice. But on that note, probably even more over-riceable is our Sichuan-inspired variant. This dish here is adapted from an old-school Sichuan dish called malaro pian, with a touch of inspiration from the sauce of mapo tofu if you kind of squint. And that's because the base of our sauce today is gonna be this product, Laogama black bean with chili, which, of all the products in the Laogama pantheon, is probably our personal favorite to use as an ingredient. It's a touch less internationally available than their famed chili crisp, but it's very available online, and of course, basically all Chinese supermarkets will carry it. Now let's talk about what we did for our ingredient prep. But I definitely also want to emphasize that this is just how we did this today. You can stir fry however you want. You can definitely be less obsessive, keep everything easier. The sauce quantities today are good for any stir fry of about 600 grams worth of ingredients, give or take. But for the chicken breast, this was 250 grams that we sliced a little on the thicker side into about half-centimeter sheets. Reason being that if you go too thin with chicken breast, sometimes the tender likes to break apart when frying. So then we'll marinate that, adding in all this stuff that's on the screen right here, and mixing that all in really quite well. Then we'll toss in a half tablespoon of starch into our bowl and crack an egg white into it, mixing the starch in with the white until there's mostly no clumps. Then mixing that all together, coating with a tablespoon of oil and mixing well again. Now, to cook this, boneless chicken really benefits from a Chinese restaurant technique called passing through oil, which is basically a quick deep fry by any other name. Now, I wanted to keep things beginner friendly, so I'm not going to make you walk that mile, but we'll be adding a half cup of oil to a wok and then reusing much of that same oil over the course of the stir fry. So get that oil, this was lard for reference, up to about 145 Celsius over a high flame. Lay the chicken in and swap the flame down to medium. Stir fry the chicken until it more or less looks done, about 1 minute, then remove and drain. Scoop out all but a tablespoon of the oil, and then we'll fry our spinach. Now, for the sake of good looking, we used a lot of spinach for our bed of spinach, about 400 grams, so we are going to need to fry this in 2 batches. You are probably not making YouTube videos, so feel free to cut that in half. But either way, over a maximum flame, once the spinach has begun to wilt, season it with an 1/8 teaspoon each salt and granulated sugar. Continue to stir fry for about 20 seconds, and especially if you're working over a weaker stove, you might notice the spinach releasing a bit of moisture. If that's the case, it's not the end of the world. Just make sure to get out the spinach sans moisture, laying that all onto a big plate. Then, besides that, we've got our king oyster mushroom, 250 grams worth that we sliced into sheets. But do feel free to use whatever mushroom you've got handy, button, shiitake, whatever you like. Then we've also got 1 large red mild chili, and again, do feel free to swap that for a red bell pepper. But our chili today was about 100 grams that we cut into a rough diamond shape. So then, back to our wok then. Over a high flame, drizzle in a tablespoon half of your oil and go in with the sliced mushrooms. Stir fry, and then you can also sort of lay them flat periodically to get a bit of browning, stir frying them every so often. After about 2 minutes, this is where I totally should have seasoned these, up on the screen, but I stupidly forgot. But after that, just add in the red pepper and continue to stir fry for about 40 seconds, or until the pepper is just barely beginning to soften. Then out, lay it together with the chicken, and now we can make our stir fry. So similar deal as before, 2 tablespoons oil, lard preferably, then go in with the minced white bits from 3 scallions. Fry that over a medium-low flame for about 30 seconds. Then go in with 2.5 tablespoons of Laogama black bean chili. Fry that for about a half minute to stain the oil. Then toss a tablespoon of a spicy chili flake and fry for another half minute. Swap the flame to high and then go in with a similar 1 cup of stock, tablespoon of soy sauce, and season that all with this mix right here. Get that up to a boil, swap the flame back down to medium-low, and then drizzle in your slurry bit by bit. Once it's thickened to your liking, add in your stir-fried ingredients, cook on high for about a half a minute, then toss in the scallion greens and a teaspoon of Sichuan pepper powder or more or less to taste. Mix well, heat off, optionally drizzle in a half tablespoon of the oil from your bottle of Laogama if it happens to have some, out, and then smother that all over your fried spinach.
So everyone in this kind of space seem to really like a Thai style stir fry, which may or may not have anything to do with Thailand. So we also decided to whip up a actual Thailand inspired stir fry using this Nam Prik Pao. So the recipe of which is in the Substack together with all the other recipes. And of course, a big thank you for everyone that's supporting us on Patreon. And of course, subscribe for more Chinese cooking videos. When you use 1 cup of stock.